You are now checking out The Win Podcast, where the everyday people are the celebrities. So let's get to know them.
What's up, guys? My name is Victor Cruz, also known as Spiritual Tree, and I'm on the Wind Podcast.
First off, this is awesome. You know, having your own podcast. I was paid to say this.
Yes.
You probably heard. Now, people for the longest time thought I was a football player. Now they think I'm retired.
I still think you're a football player.
But retired.
Yeah.
So I show up to an audition. They're like, I thought you quit acting. No.
That's funny.
So, yeah, but thank you for having me on the show.
Nah.
This is awesome, dude.
No
This
problem,
is
man.
great.
No problem. Thank you. I always like to explain that our connection, the connection I have with the guests, and like how we came to be, and then the rest, the floor is yours. So basically, I met you. It was 6 years ago, and I wanted to basically was searching for an acting class, and I told myself I had this opportunity in LA or whatever, and I said that falls through, then I'm gonna go to improv, take at the UCP theater, and then I'm going to take an acting class. Literally didn't have that opportunity, fell down, went to UCB, and then literally when I go on Facebook, someone shares your acting class and was like, you should check out this great dramatic acting class, literally to a T. And I was like, okay. So I checked out. I was creeping on you. See, I didn't want to be no random acting guy. Like, I can do some acting. I can do that back in the day. So
Acting, that's that thing with the people, they talk and they play characters. I could probably do that.
Yeah, exactly. But this guy was legit. So I met you. I remember the first class. It was so dope. I connected to you very deeply, and I was like, man, I felt like I knew this dude. And just the love that I got from you was genuine. And I was like, this is it. This is the guy that I'm going to learn from. This is what I want to do. So that's our connection. And the rest is history. We became great friends, then teacher, then a brother to me, then a spiritual brother. So you already got my connection. So Victor, I want to know, who are you and what does Victor mean to you?
So I am Victor Cruz. That was the name that my parents gave me. Actually, my mother wanted to call me Mark Anthony.
That's taken. What's up with these names?
Well, at the time, Mark Anthony was some skinny kid.
Doing freestyle
in the projects. Not even. This is probably before freestyle. He was probably a little kid too. I mean, he was probably a kid because he's a little older than I am. But she wanted to call me Mark Anthony. My father was like set on Victor because my grandmother wanted to call my dad Victor. But back then, I guess his father, my grandfather, was like, no, he's going to have my name. My name is Jesus. He's going to be Jesus. And so he stayed Jesus. But he always knew that his son would be called Victor one day. So, you think your name is original. You think it's unique in the world.
Yeah.
And then you realize Victor Cruz is kind of like John Smith to a degree.
It's like a Jose.
It's like a Jose. Well, in some parts of the world. I think in Mexico, Victor Cruz is very popular.
Oh, really?
I remember that there was a lot of news during the 90s that would come out about different things that were happening to Victor Cruzes all around New York City. And I was doing comedy at the time. And every time I walked into the club, the manager of the club, who was a good friend of mine, he always thought something happened to me because he read in the paper, Victor Cruz was murdered, and then I walk into the club, he's like, oh my God, you're alive. What do you mean? So Victor Cruz is very popular in Queens. But yeah, so my name is really Victor Manuel Cruz, which that's the name of a salsa singer. So I have shared my name with all these big superstars, and maybe that says something about, the journey that I was about to take, because maybe
it's going to be extra harder for you.
It was going to be extra hard for me. I got to really prove myself now. Guys, I'm good too. Yeah. Because all these guys, think about it. I mean, Victor Cruz, the football player, Victor Manuel, Mark Anthony, which my name never became Mark Anthony, but these guys are major superstars on such a high caliber in the world.
You got so much pressure. If not this... If you're ever homeless, it's like, the original story behind my name, Victor Cruz.
Right. I'm going to be like Al Bundy and Married with Children. I scored 4 touchdowns in a single game.
Just like, there was just too much pressure with that name. Who could live up to it?
Right, who could live up to it? So,
So what does that mean to you? You know,
So,
Victor, who is Victor? Also, your spiritual name is Spiritual Tree. Like, what is, you know, when you think of that name, you know, those names, what does that mean to you?
Well, the name Victor alone means winner. It means someone who has beaten something. They're the victor, right? And so that was really powerful for me growing up. I always thought, wow, that's kind of cool. But I never thought that I felt the way that the name had that weight, you know? When you break down my name, Victor Manuel Cruz, Victor is this winner. Manuel it derives from Emmanuel, which means the hand of God. And Cruz is Spanish for cross. So my name was all sorts of religious, you know, out the Bible, you know, something very powerful that dealt with the higher power or something. You know, like if I had a sword and a shield and I'm out there and I'm fighting.
I would have went back as a spirit. I was like, nah, but that is too much to deal with. Like,
too much.
Call me a George or something. Like,
exactly. And then,
not saying that George is like,
right.
we're saying you're George.
Well, George is like a John Smith.
Yeah.
George Clooney is very popular. And then you
George
have
Carlin.
George Carlin.
Yeah, don't ever do George.
Yeah, don't do George. I would
tough
have been stuck.
name.
George of the Jungle.
Yeah.
You know, I would have got snapped on in school. But you know, you asked the question, what did the name mean to me? And I think, you know, I really never. It's interesting because I connect more to my spiritual name. And have a better understanding of what that name means in connection with me than my actual name. My actual name has become, in a sense, like, yes, it's my name and it's the name my parents gave me, but it's kind of like Mr. Anderson for Neo in the Matrix. But I understand what Neo is. Neo is just a more profound way of looking at myself. Victor Cruz is my ID that I use to operate in the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And,
but also, like you touched on, it also still means something. Like both names for you has meaning to you. But I think you also touched on that even though the spiritual name may connect more to you, you still found the importance of Victor, which is winning.
Sure.
What you said is like, that reminds me of winning, and you breaking it down, just Victor Cruz and the whole name. It comes from a source of like great stuff. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't like this piece of shit name or whatever.
That's true. When you really look at it like that, and I think this is my first time actually anyone ever asking me about my name and me breaking it down. So for me, this is kind of like a whole fresh way of talking about it.
Right.
But I guess when I really look at it from a spiritual perspective, it was as if it was a divine thing. It was from the higher power. It was a message to tell me that you are important, you are special, and you are going to go into battle, even if I wasn't conscious of it. Like, you're going to deal with stuff in your life, and if you can hang in there and keep fighting, at some point you won't have to fight anymore, but you'll absorb some kind of lessons that will then make you stronger.
Yeah. Your name already came down with strength that you already had, but had to build up to.
That's right. And I almost like I had to earn not so much the name, but the information.
Yeah, exactly.
The definition,
because
right?
like, you know, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King or David and Goliath, like these names were given and they sound powerful, but it's what the name was already there. It was up to you to fulfill those names and then find out what comes with that name. So you know what I'm saying? It's just like
That's
when
right.
you earned your spiritual name, you know, that name was already there. It was up to you to fulfill those footsteps to finally get the whole picture and continue to get to the picture.
Great question, by the way.
That's
like a great first question.
Thank
like,
you.
awesome.
Appreciate that. What I want to get into as well is how did you get started in comedy and in acting? Like, I know you share some things with me as well, but I want the people now take on a journey to like, how did you get started in comedy acting, and when did that start for you? What was that motivation that clicked?
For me, comedy has always been in my house, whether it was through family, cracking jokes, laughing at each other, or as a kid, we used to, I won't say steal, We used to borrow HBO on a full-time basis.
Yeah, I like to borrow too.
With these little like satellite dishes that used to sit out the window. And of course, nobody cared about anybody in the South Bronx back in the 80s, so it didn't matter what the hell we were doing, but we were definitely getting HBO
Time
on a
was
borrowed.
much simpler to borrow.
Much simpler. Right. They couldn't really track it.
Yeah, yep.
You could just borrow it. And, you know, I guess we gave it back. I'm not sure. But anyway, Saturday nights, they used to have these big comedy concerts, you know, that I would watch. As a kid, I remember I'd sit on the floor, and the TV was humongous because it was made of wood, and I would sit on the floor, and my world was like as if I were inside the TV. That's how close I would sit to it. That's how big it felt. Probably looking at the TV today, if I had found the TV today, it probably wouldn't be as big.
It'd be 10 inches.
Yeah, it'd be 10 inches, right? But back then, I was at a drive-in movie theater. You know? And, you know, I saw comedians like George Carlin. I saw Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and, you know, Sam Kinison, any of the comedians that had a special on HBO back then. And that was already sort of like began to imprint in me. Like there was a confirmation in me that I enjoyed this. I enjoyed comedy, and I enjoyed this idea that you could stand in front of people and make them laugh. But I don't think back then I knew that like one day I would do it. I just knew that there was something special about it. So, and this is me like at 5 years old, 6 years old, just sitting there, and you know, they're clearly cursing. They're talking about shit that I don't know about, sex jokes I don't get, but I'm laughing because my parents are laughing, and I just want to be part of that experience.
Gotcha.
You know, which is so funny because my daughter today does that. She'll laugh, and I know she don't get it, but just the fact that she sees me enjoy a joke, she wants to be part of that experience, which is so awesome.
Laugh at your jokes.
And then she doesn't laugh at any of my jokes, you know. And then I remind her that my name is Victor, and I'm a winner, and then she walks away.
But that's dope, though. That's amazing.
But it's so awesome because it reminds me of me. So I think in terms of the acting, I was like, I guess what you consider a latchkey kid. I used to go home by myself after school, or if someone picked me up from school, I just spent a lot of time with the TV. And in a sense, there were some times where I was by myself, and the characters in the shows almost became my friends. You know, I wasn't allowed to go outside, so you know, all the chicks from the Facts of Life, they were my homies. You know, what was the blonde girl's name?
I forgot.
I think it was
her name.
Blair.
I don't even know
Blair was the name,
I remember.
and she was my girlfriend. Punky Brewster was my side piece.
Nice.
But she was also my friend.
You had to let her know. Put in the
I had to let her know, listen, Blair is number one. You a side piece. Even the little robot chick from A Small Wonder, I don't know if you remember that. She wasn't a side piece at all. She wasn't. She was just somebody I hung out with. You know?
Okay.
But anyways, these are my friends. You know, these are my friends, and they comforted me when I felt a certain kind of way. And I always wanted to be a part of that world. I saw them happy on TV. I just saw them having fun. And I didn't know what that fun was because I couldn't really, it's interesting, I couldn't relate it to anything that I was doing in my life back in the South Bronx in the 80s, but there was something going on that I could connect to and that I wanted to be a part of. So I think in my mind, somewhere in the back of my head, I wanted to be a part of the entertainment world, but I hadn't quite decided yet.
Right.
You know, I was doing like talent shows and stuff. I used to like dance, and I used to rap as a kid. I don't do any of that stuff anymore. Don't ask me to dance. It's not happening. But back then I was killing it.
Right.
At least in my mind I was killing it. I was victorious. So
yeah, pretty much it was the, like, you know, before you got these auditions and, you know, you grabbed the mic, which is a great, interesting story, right? Because when you ask this question, people's like, oh, I remember when I grabbed the mic and I did this and I did that or whatever, right? Like, it was great to hear you get deeper than that. Whereas, like, for me, it started with the TV, you know, watching, you know, in the living room and stuff like that. To me, that's honestly where the comedy and the acting really started for me, because it was this, you know, reminder from somewhere that, like, oh, I'm laughing and this is pretty dope, but it's a reminder of something. That whatever they're doing to make us laugh, that's what I want. It was a trigger, which to me, honestly, that is kind of like where to start. That is the start. You just don't really wake up at, like, I don't know, 18 or 15. It's like, let me go to stand up and do open mic. No, it has to be triggered before that. So it started with the TV feed, which was pretty awesome.
You know, I quickly, as you're talking, I remember when In Living Color had come out. I was a kid, and my cousin and I, we used to record, like we would watch the sketches on In Living Color, or like Saturday Night Live, and you know, it was one of those recorders where you had to hit play and record at the same time. You know, it was the stereo, the boom box, and we would reenact these sketches, him and I, at like 7 or 8 years old. And then we would sit and play them back, and we would crack up at our own version of those sketches. So in some way, that was also part of my training.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
For things to come. So.
And I remember, to top on that, I remember you shared a story, which was funny, where you used to shoot films or whatever. You was young or whatever. Like, you used to shoot certain things, and you was like so professional and like making edits. Making edits and like, I'm sorry, Jim, but you're not gonna, you quite didn't make the cut for this one. We're gonna go with Mike.
Yeah. You know what happened? So my friend's father was a producer at BronxNet, public access in the Bronx, and I have to explain that just in case somebody in some other country is listening to it. They don't. What the heck is BronxNet? And he had a show, I remember, where they interviewed me as just like an artist, because in high school I studied art. I used to draw. That was the first thing I was originally going to do, because I thought to myself, I love cartoons. I used to love like the cartoons that used to pop up on MTV, Liquid Television, Beavis and Butthead, The Brothers Grunt, Ren and Stimpy, all of those like Nickelodeon crazy bizarre cartoons. I loved them. So I wanted to draw cartoons, and just like Mel Blanc and Mike Judge, I wanted to do all the voices of the cartoons. That was my original dream. So I was in art. They interviewed me, and I remember thinking like, oh, this is so cool to be on TV. The idea to be on TV. I was on public access, and probably today some people might discredit a public access. But you know, there's nothing wrong with public access, and you can really reach a major audience. But back then, I was so innocent, so naive, and for me, the fact that I was on TV, it was a big deal. So I remember, I think, talking to my friend, I don't know how this happened, but we decided we were going to do a sketch comedy show called From A to Z. That was going to be the thing. And we were all supposed, it was a handful of us, and we were supposed to do sketches. Each one of us is supposed to bring in a sketch. Nobody brought in any sketches. Nobody brought in sketches. They barely brought in any costumes or anything. I had other ideas with me. I must have had like maybe 8 sketch ideas. I was like, guys, you're supposed to bring stuff in. So we literally used every single sketch I had brought in, whether it was funny or not. We did it. So you know, we had this one sketch where we were interrogating a toothbrush. You know, we had this whole kung fu bit where we dubbed all the talking. I mean, I wish I could show you this footage. I'm trying to get it so that I can like show it on, you know, online, and people would just have a blast with it. But
that would be the material that goes viral.
Right? Could you create what you did? You know,
that toothbrush bit. Let me tell you.
But to go back to what you're saying, I remember how serious I was back then about it. I was just like, guys, like, we have to stop joking around. Though this is jokes, we got to stop joking around. We got to focus. We only have a day. We had to shoot the entire thing in 10 hours or something. And so I just remember being so strict about it, and my friends saw me in a different light. But I never knew I had this in me. It's just that when I got there, I just felt like it was so important. We can't bullshit. We have to do this, you know? And plus, they were going to play it on BronxNet for an entire week. And there I was going around high school, and I was telling everybody, it was like, we're going to be on BronxNet for the entire week at 5 p.m. Don't miss it. We might have made flyers.
Yeah, and that was when that was social media. Like, you had to go to people, like, and be social. Like, listen, 5 o'clock, BronxNet. At the whole week, you know what I'm saying? So
you had to be that little bird from Twitter. Bounce around.
You had to actually be the bird.
You had to use your mind to Instagram these moments to remember what happened, or if somebody actually had a Polaroid or something.
But I like what you said, where you said there's, you know, the seriousness, right? Where comedy, that anything that you do with comedy, in a sense, you are taking these serious moments and making them funny. And whatever production you're doing, there has to be some type of seriousness and fun, right? Like, this is what we're doing. We got to do this. Knowing when to balance down, like, let's shoot out and do it, which is great that you had that, or, you know, you're bringing that from a past life or whatever. Just like,
that's true.
Just
I didn't think about that.
I get it. Yeah, I'm always joking around, but we're gonna joke around during. But we have to get this shit straight. And you already was like, laying down the foundation that you were already connecting to. So moving along, I want to know, when you had this seriousness, like, how was it when you portrayed that to your parents? Like, yo, guess what? I'm going to be an actor and comedian. This is what I would do. Like, what was their reaction to that? And you're just like, well, I got these scripts. They're calling.
Well, at this point in my life, my parents' relationship, it was a wrap. It was a wrap. There was chaos in that relationship. My father wasn't even living with us anymore. I didn't really have a relationship with my dad during that time. So comedy, actually, I want to say that comedy was like an angel that showed up for me in a moment of like trauma. Because literally I had this major fight that happened between me and my father and the family, and it was just violent and it was crazy.
Because you were stealing his jokes.
Because I was stealing his jokes. I was like, you'll never be Victor.
That was my toothbrush sketch.
And you know I like Kung Fu films. So because of that toothbrush sketch, we got into this huge fight. And I remember it was so crazy that, you know, the cops had to show up after, and we were in the hospital. And I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep that night. But the very next day, I decided, and I've told you this story before. I called my buddy, who was one of the people I did the From A to Z with. He was like one of my close friends. And I said, yo, I just need to like take a walk. I need to get out of here. And that same day, and I'll say this, that same day as we were taking a walk, I ran into the guy that offered it me to perform comedy for the first time ever. So to answer your question about like how did my parents feel about it, well, like I said, I didn't have a relationship with my dad, but my mom, I guess she knew I was always silly and funny, and I think that for her, anything that would keep my mind occupied from the craziness that was happening was great for her, and to know that I was doing something positive. Gotcha. So she was there during my first act. It was her, it was my really close friend Sean, who I'm the godfather of his son. We've known each other since we were 13. We just hung out the other day, and we sort of remembered this big fight that we had when we were in the 8th grade. And it was the stupidest fight ever, and both of us couldn't fight. And here we were fighting, and we're swinging at each other, and we must have punched more air than we punched each other. But he got me good. He got me good, and then I gave him a shiner, but the air got it bad.
What is up with, I think the moral of these stories is like, which is great for you, is like, keep on fighting, because it's great things that come out of these
my
fights.
name is Victor.
So keep fighting, because these moments, this fight with your dad, you do comedy, you do great. This fight with your friend, you got the best friend. Like, so keep fighting.
We're still friends.
And there, you have the greatest relationship from these fights. So I think
if you can't punch your friend out after punching the air 1,000 times, that is not friendship.
Right.
So yeah, man. But
they was all supportive, basically. My
mom was super supportive, and it wasn't until later that my dad actually came, when we started rebuilding our relationship, that he came to a comedy show. This is like, I'm gonna tell you when this was. This was probably like 4 or 5 years after I had started doing comedy, that he came to see one of my shows for the first time, and he was blown away, because I watched comedy because of him. I watched comedy because my mom and dad loved watching comedy. That's a bond that they shared. That exactly. So like I brought that back. Yeah. So that was the first time he had ever been to a comedy show, and he was in awe.
So wait, so you guys were watching comedy, right? And your mom been to a comedy show before?
None of them had ever been to a
So
comedy show.
all this comedy they're watching, and then you blessed them with
bringing them to an actual show.
And it was your show.
And it was my show.
That is fucking dope.
And it was my show. Now, my mom had already been to my shows. She had seen me do well. She had seen me bomb really bad. She had seen me search for my voice a lot.
You guys went from the living room now to an actual stage.
That's right.
Which is,
and they're all sitting at the same table.
You're the main event.
That's right. It was my show. I remember I was hosting it. It was my show. It was comedians that I had invited. A couple of the comedians the club had supplied, but these guys were big stars. Like I had Sarah Silverman was on that show before she became Sarah Silverman. Dean Edwards was definitely on that show.
And what's so dope, right, is that because to me, I'm just seeing it now. Is that you're in the living room. It's you, your mom and dad. You guys are dying laughing. You're not knowing what they're laughing about, but you want to laugh too, and you are laughing. You're just enjoying that feeling. Cut to now the full callback of them there watching you, and you're giving them that feeling, and you figured out that feeling, how to use it to give it to yourself, and now back to them.
Yep.
That's fucking crazy.
I wanted to know what triggered their laugh.
And now you're doing it.
And I figured it out. And what's interesting about that, as a way to think about that, I've been in situations where I don't understand what the audience is laughing at. Mm-hmm. Like I've been to auditions where it is for like a comedy. Or like I've tested for a pilot where I was in the room and certain punchlines, like I knew what the punchlines were, but the people in the room would laugh at something else, and they would all laugh in unison as if, and I was like, I don't get what they're laughing at. I have no idea. So that takes me back to when I was a kid trying to figure out, what are you guys laughing at?
Gotcha.
I thought I had this figured out.
But I think in comedy, you never have anything 100% figured out, because there's always you could figure out to the extent like this is gonna make them laugh, but there's always an uncertainty of what happens while you're doing your act or whatever it is, that they're laughing in different places, because everybody has a different funny bone. Yeah. So you could have your act, you always gotta leave your act to maybe like 70%, knowing that these where I'm expecting them to laugh, but I gotta go with the flow, because every audience is different, because they may laugh at serious moments, and I'm like, that's not funny, but to them, they're like dying laughing.
You just gotta let them
have it. You gotta let them have it.
You can't correct them, excuse me.
Yeah, you can't correct them.
Can't correct them. That's their experience.
I wanna touch on as well, like you said, like your mom was there for finding your voice. Now I know it's when you're in, even, I think, like when I first heard the term as a comedian, don't worry, it takes years to find your voice, right? As hearing that, I was following that trend, as it became more spiritual, I saw that as, no, it takes years to find yourself. And then finding your spirit that's already there to really listen to what he or she is trying to give you, show you. Yeah. So I want to know, what did you do to like find your voice? That epiphany moment. Where we're always gonna learn of different versions of our voice. But what was that moment for you? Is like I'm grasping on to like, this is who I am on stage, and I'm gonna keep on running with that, or even in acting too.
I think in the beginning, it's all about, I have to make them laugh. If they like me, if they laugh at my jokes, then I'm succeeding. So you strive so hard to do that. At the same time, too, in the beginning, you have no idea how this thing is going to turn out. Right. You're scared, you feel anxious, you're nervous. I remember I was just telling a friend of mine the other day that every time I would go to perform, I always had to take a shit before the set.
Right.
Because I was so nervous. I was like, I have to take like a really good shit, and I need to sit there, and I need to think about my act, and shit, and then think again, and then sit in the back. And this is during the time when comedy clubs, when they were still smoking in comedy clubs, and I was 16 years old. I had the only headache from all this smoke, and trying to keep a clear head with all this smoke in my head. So in the beginning, it's all about just like, I want to be as funny. I just want to be funny. Right. And then you move into a phase of like, I need them to laugh, because you want to graduate to another place, and you're not even really that clear what that place is. You're just looking at stuff on the outskirts and going, oh yeah, that person is doing this. I want to get on that show. So I need to be funny. But never once during that process, at least for me, and I'm just going to speak for me because I don't know what it's like for everybody else, I never said, what makes me laugh, though? And some of those jokes were what made me laugh. And sometimes they didn't make the audience laugh. Gotcha. And that's okay, too. But I think I started to find it when I started to let some of these characters that either I knew in my family or people that I knew in the neighborhood start to come out. When I had created...
Your friends came to help.
My friends came to help. Your friends. Right, my friends came to help. From I'm sure Blair made a call.
No, but the friends that you looked, these friends that you connected to, that you called them friends.
That's right.
They came back into your life, which these characters are your friends.
That's right. And everything. I never thought of it that way. Everything I absorbed watching TV, all of a sudden I relied on that. I relied on what I knew, and I was in control of that. And I had more confidence in that than writing a joke. If I let the characters speak and sort of let them improvise, it was much funnier than I could ever be just writing the jokes.
Gotcha.
So I started doing more of that on stage, and that was my moment of, oh, this is my strength. This is,
Gotcha.
you know what I mean? And I think I could have pushed a little bit more in that direction at that time. But I also was searching for other answers that maybe, and also I didn't know what those answers were. I didn't know what I was searching for. And then later on, it came.
Right. Because when they throw those things at you, you know, it takes years to find your voice. It really is. It's true. It just like it takes years to work on yourself. That's what you're pretty much doing. Like you're walking into this whole unknown of comedy, and you're figuring it out. You're searching. You're finding. You're really digging. If you allow yourself, you start really asking the question like you did. Like, I don't want to just like make them laugh. I want to know what makes me laugh. What was this thing that I connected to? And then from there, by trial and error, you got to the source. And then you had this epiphany moment like, my friends came back. I'm gonna do these characters. And then you're doing these characters and you're finding the strength in that. And you're like, this is funny. For me, I loved it. And then by you like triggering it back to you, it spread to everybody else.
Right.
Which was dope. So I like that. I think that was pretty amazing how you put it, where you described that aha moment for you. And that was just the beginning to everything else started to fall in place.
For sure.
I want to know now. I want to dig into like the acting side of it a little bit now. You're a great teacher, a phenomenal teacher, and a great actor, phenomenal actor. You're someone that I look up to, who I will go up to and always ask questions. I learn so much from you, right?
I had a moment I was like, who is he? I swear to God, I was like, oh, at first I was like, Guru? I didn't know.
There was another one too as well. We're going to get into that as well.
I didn't know what you're talking about.
But no, it's true. Like, you know, to me, like, you know, I started like, I had people that I looked up to, correct? You know, and then once I started really working on myself, I really had to ask myself that question: how can I really look up to a John Leguizamo or Jim Carrey when I don't fucking know them? They could be horrible people, right? But I can be inspired by them. So like I started rearranging how I started to look at things. These guys are talented. Yeah. I don't look up to them. I'm inspired by them. But I can look up to a person like you because I got to know you, the ins, the outs, whatever you were sharing, you know, this mirror of that I can relate to. And what I appreciate are these talks that we can get into it. So I can look up to a person like you because I know you. So if any like TMZ goes on, I was like, nah, Vic won't do that. He won't show his dick in public. I know that. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, y'all. They said they were gummy bears.
You know, I can vouch for that. I was like, nah, Vic would never that type of person go to a restaurant.
It's like that moment. It's that moment when the FBI shows the mafia pictures of Donnie Brasco.
Yeah.
Never Donnie.
Exactly. Not Donnie. But if they come with me a picture of like John Leguizamo, I'm like, probably. This motherfucker's crazy Hollywood. You was like, this nigga's crazy Hollywood. I don't know, maybe. But they showed me a picture of you. I was like, nah, never once. We went to Applebee's.
Never Donnie.
Applebee's, fucking McDonald's. He never pulled out his dick when I ordered a fucking Big Mac. Never.
Be on the news. He pulled out his dick at Chuck E. Cheese.
I was like, never. We went to Dave & Buster's. There was tons of kids there. He could have pulled out his dick if he wanted. I could vouch for it. So I want to know.
I know he was thinking of pulling his dick out. Me too.
I want to know what was, besides the TMZ, what was a difficult time? What was a difficult time on set that you had that you wasn't connecting to a character or a director? And I want to know, like, what did you do in those moments, right? Because you go into those things and you feel confident, you build up the confidence that but every now and then you're gonna run into someone that may challenge what you know, or may not be speaking in clarity what they want from you, or you might be having some issues internally connecting to a character. So I want to know, and in your experience, and when you had those moments, like, what did you do? I think those are crucial moments for any actor or comedian that, you know, I feel like I don't really hear about it, you know, because we always see, like I always said, we always see Marvin Gaye as his finest. You know, we always see Beyonce kill it. We see all these people, but we never see them behind the curtain.
I never see Beyonce taking a dump.
Right. I never seen Beyonce.
Jay, Jay, don't come in here.
Right. I never seen Aretha Franklin or anybody like really like
it's picking a wedgie out at Burger King.
yes. No. And like going through it, like I built up to this, but I had this moment where I was like very insecure or whatever. So I want to know, what was that? You know, whenever you had a difficult time with set, connecting or dealing with the director, like what did you do?
Wow, that's interesting because it's like different phases of it. I think in the beginning.
Well, now you could probably.
I was just thinking in the beginning, like I just thinking in the beginning, it was like I was so nervous, so excited to have gotten a job that when I was on set, I hoped and prayed that I didn't screw it up. And so more of my focus went into hoping and praying that I wouldn't screw it up, that I would remember the lines. And I remember like one of my first bigger roles, I had done an episode of Law and Order, and I killed the audition. And the director was like, I really like this guy. Could you read this other thing? So I ended up reading this other character that I remember, I think I was like 23 at the time, and the character was like 55. And I was like, what the hell? I must be like old or something, you know, old soul. And I went in there and I killed the character, and it was a good feeling. The woman who wrote the episode, she loved me, and so did the director. When I got to set, I was working with Jesse L. Martin, who was supposed to play Marvin Gaye, which I was hoping he played Marvin Gaye because he looks like Marvin Gaye, right? Which is funny, you said Marvin Gaye and made me think of him. But I remember that the lines were never coming out the way it was scripted. And they kept stopping and they kept saying, you have to do it the way it's written. You got to do it the way it's written. Because it's like TV, they're very strict, you know. The script has been approved and like you can't just improvise. Those like the TV rules. And I remember I kept messing up my lines. It was more so because I was feeling really nervous.
Right.
And it was 7:00 in the morning. It was 7:00 at night when I went to the callback, and I was tears coming down. The water had kicked in. They hadn't turned the power off of the water. Now it's 7:00 in the morning to go into that space. When you're still waking up, your body's still waking up, you got to produce that same thing. And I was having a hard time doing that. And then finally, they got it going. They were so kind to me. They were so kind to me. The director was kind to me. The writer was kind to me. She told me, she said, we loved you. We knew that we had to give you something in this episode. Matter of fact, the villainous character in that episode, this was years ago, apparently I was like one of his victims. He had shot me in the chest. He's the same guy that's the villain now in Luke Cage, the second season, if you watch it. But it's funny to see him years later and go, oh my God, we worked together in that episode years ago. I mean, if you watch the episode, I look like a kid. Definitely a kid. Like my mustache was just growing in.
And he walked up to us and said, did you do that toothbrush?
I saw you on BronxNet. That was
we actually worked together.
No, I don't think since BronxNet.
You had to put a whole week at 5 o'clock.
But fast forwarding to now, the thing that your question was
basically, what did you do in those moments? You took us in the beginning, right? You felt nervous. You allowed those emotions to take over, and then allowed them to help you, right? So, which is a blessing, because in that world they'll chew you up. But they actually say, this is a moment to not beat him down, but lift him up. So you felt those emotions, didn't know how to control it or what to do. Now you're well seasoned, had more experience dealing with those type of things. So what do you do now if something like that happens?
Well, it's different now, because now I'm more in control of how I feel, of my emotions, and that has to do a lot with my spiritual practice and how I see myself, my self-worth. But what happens today that sometimes sneaks in, and doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, I have to do some of that battling with the shield and the sword. Victor has to come in and battle that out, which is, I've made a choice. I've made a decision as to how I'm going to do something. And sometimes, once in a while, someone other than the director will attempt to direct me because they want something for them. They need me to do something that will trigger them, but that trigger is unnecessary for my particular character to do. I could be very clear on this is what I'm going to do, and not always, but once in a while, what happens is those guys or gals or whomever might try to get in my head to say, hey, this is the way I want it. Might not even serve the story or what's being done, but if you allow that voice to dance in your head, it will fuck the whole process up, and I will not share the very best of me. I'll be too focused on battling the note that I just got from not the director, and if I allow it to, just absorb me.
Right.
I'll leave that set, I'll kick my own ass. There was a time where somebody did that to me, and it was so bad that I couldn't remember my lines. When I knew my lines. I walked in there, we had rehearsed the scene, I had done it, it was great. I let this person in my head. I did that.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything, because I didn't have to open that door and let them in, but they did it, and I paid the price for it.
Right.
I paid the price for it. And does it come up from time to time? Do I think about it? Hell yeah.
Right.
But it always reminds me now that you can't allow somebody to do that to you. You cannot allow them, because they're saying they're doing, but it's really up to you. And that was a lesson I had to learn. It was a painful lesson, but if you let it happen, it's ultimately your fault. You allowed it. So now what I strive for all the time, and I'm still learning it, I get stronger and stronger, which is like, know your self-worth. Know what you got going on. We all got something going on. And it's the best shit ever. And it's only yours. And so don't ever, ever let anybody tell you that that's not right. Try it. See what happens. If the director, because they're the ones watching it.
Right.
They're the ones in charge of controlling the story. So if they say, hey, so-and-so, you or Victor, could you do this a little bit more? That's fine. That's a direction to make it better. But it's not taking away of the uniqueness and the gifts that you bring to the table.
That's perfect, because that goes right into this other question that I had, that it's like, this industry is filled with rejection. You know, did you ever feel frustrated on this path, of not being accepted for a lot of things that you wanted or whatever? And I want to know how, which most importantly, how through all the rejection and the beatdowns that comes with this industry, how do you stay true to yourself and to your craft?
That's a great question. It was tough when I didn't get it. Sometimes I would fall in love with the project so much that I would suffer the pain of rejection for an entire week, or however bad I wanted that role, I would feel it. Especially when I got really close to getting it. I got the call back. Now I was in there with the creator of the show, and now they really love me, and then something happens, I don't get it. And it used to get to me. And then, also there's the rejection, but there's also the silence. The phone doesn't ring as often sometimes, and then it rings again, and then it doesn't ring. It's this like constant waiting game if you're just an actor. So during that quiet time, I just kind of started writing. This is back in like 2004. I started just writing, and I kind of found that I was like, I'm a pretty good writer. Got some good ideas, and I enjoyed it. And so then I started producing some of those ideas, creating those shorts or sketches or whatever it was. And I felt empowered, but I didn't know it was empowerment at the time. I just felt that I loved the way I just loved the feeling. I'm sorry to spit at you. I love the feeling so much, I had to spit at you.
It's a part of it all goes with the interview. It adds intense.
You got to wear a raincoat when you interview me. But
empowerment, spitting on it.
Empowerment.
I don't know what it was, just spitting on the host.
Next time somebody spits at you or spits down on your feet because they're trying to disrespect you, you go, oof, I feel good about myself. I feel empowered. Yeah, exactly. So So yeah, you deal with rejection, and rejection is tough, but it also builds a thick skin.
Mm-hmm.
It also says, you know what? Yeah, at some point you start to develop, if you're open,
Mm-hmm.
you just accept it for what it is. You go, you know what? This role wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not for me to like sit around and like beat my ass about it. Like, it's okay. It's totally fine. Where it gets tricky, where it gets tricky, I think, is when, then you look at real life. You look at, you got to pay bills.
Right.
And there are some actors who they have 9-to-5 jobs, full-time jobs, and they sacrifice a great deal to sneak out of their jobs to go to an audition or whatever your schedule is. You sacrifice a great deal. And sometimes I feel bad about the amount of sacrificing. It says a lot about the actor, but I feel like some actors work so hard, including myself, that I'm like, you know what? We should get a check just for coming to the callback, for killing it the way we did, in a way that probably inspired them to revamp the script, to change the character.
Type of compensation.
Something, because you kill it in there. I mean, you could kill it, and then they'll just say, you know what? I think I'm going to go with a Chinese actor. I think I'm going to go with a black actor.
Right.
Whatever the decision is. And they just switch it just because they have a different idea. So...
it seems like, I'm sorry.
No, please.
But it seems like how you remain true to yourself in those moments is by constantly reminding yourself who and what you are, and then to not wait, but create.
That's right. I like that.
You don't wait, you create,
Yeah.
and you make your own path.
Yeah.
And you still continue. You, at the end of the day, you put the waiting back on them. You know where I'm at. You know my phone number if you want me. And
That's it.
Until then, I'm gonna keep on doing what I have to do. And it's like you're taking the power away from the industry that we give to them. It's like being on an audition on a cattle call, which I fucking hate. Like, I never like how they treat these cattle call things where everybody's out there and we're cattle and we're like, and go ahead, nope, next. And I'm just like, since when the roles reversed? Since when we are giving everything to them and they're telling us, you got it. Like, I just never, I remember when I first did something like that, I did not have a good time. I don't know, and I had to like ask myself, I'm like, is it my ego, is my pride, do I feel like I'm better than this? I'm like, I don't feel like I'm better than this. I just feel like you're a director, you have your power, you're a casting director, you have your power, I'm an actor, I have my power, we all are actors, no matter what level, we have our own individual power. It should be this mainstream thing, because together we create this. We just don't do this on our own. So yeah, what I learned from that is that you don't wait, you create. You put the waiting back on them. 'Cause at the end of the day, they're figuring shit out. And you know where I'm at, man. You know my number. And until then, yeah, it's gonna suck because I would like to have that job, but whatever. There'll be more down the road.
But you're more fulfilled. I look at somebody like you. I also admire you, your strength, your courage, how you get things done. You wait for nobody. You wait for nobody. And that's actually the cloth that I'm cut from too, because I've been doing that for a long time. But sometimes we get blinded, we forget, and so we lose ourselves. And then we come back and we say, you know what? I remember when I was this. This is who I am. So when I watch you do your stuff, I say to myself, yeah, we are cut from the same cloth, and that's how you do it. Let them come to you. Don't rely on this business as a way to provide for you, for your family, for the future. If they want to come if they want to come to the party, that's cool.
Right.
But if they don't come to the party, then listen, and you're the only one at the party, dance, enjoy it.
I love that, because it reminds me of this podcast, and it will move forward to this perfect question I have. I was listening to this podcast, and the beautiful message I got from it was like, she thought that she's also an actress, and she thought about like giving up in those moments, stuff like that. And she said, you know what, I heard something from somewhere, and it was like, whenever I have those moments of like giving up, or I don't know if I could continue, I don't know if it's gonna happen for me, I go to the supermarket and I go to the water aisle and I look at all the different brands of water that's there, and I'm like, these motherfuckers never gave up, and the only thing they did was use the water that was already there and created something of themselves with it.
Right.
And I was like, damn, that was fucking deep. Water was already fucking here when we came to this fucking earth.
That's
and
right.
now Fuji, Poland
Fiji,
Spring.
you had Fiji.
You had all these different waters, right?
Yeah.
And we're made out of that shit too. So it's like,
Yeah.
and they took nothing from something. It's like, all right, well, I believe that my water is better or whatever.
That's
and it
right.
goes back to, if you go into that aisle, I believe that I am better within myself.
That's awesome.
You know what I'm saying? I can create
Yeah.
nothing from something.
Right.
So, I think that was a beautiful thing when I heard that too. I also like how you mentioned, like, if it's easy when you're in this industry where you can like lose yourself. And I want to touch on something where, the world of ego and pride, right? We both struggle with ego and pride, and it's something that like we learn from. Not that we are, I guess, constantly looking for that, but it naturally comes up in certain things. And I want to know, what was something in those moments that you learned that from now, once you set yourself free, you look back, you're like, oh, that wasn't needed there, or that was, I didn't know I had it in this area, because it will show you in different areas. That's the thing. This thing can go in so many different layers.
Yeah, for me, like, it's interesting because I recently had a conversation with my spiritual teacher, our spiritual teacher, Guru Enlightenment, and I told her I realized where a lot of those moments of ego and pride, where I would run into that wall and be stuck, and then the lights would come on, and it's like, okay, that's what's happening here. I spent a long time doing things on my own, where I was every single position in a project that I was doing. Maybe somebody didn't believe in the project that I was creating, but for some reason I believed in myself so much that I was like, I'm going to do it anyways, and I will play all the roles that I need to in order to make it happen. So it was a form also of defense. It was a way for me to say, this project is worth producing, and if you're not going to help me, I'll do it. I'll control it. I'll make it happen, and you're not going to hurt me in the process.
Right.
You're not going to help me, but you're not going to be allowed to step in here and get through me. So I'm going to put these barriers up, and I'm going to put some blinders on, and I'm going to do everything my way. And maybe during that process, I also closed my ears a little bit, like, I got to do it this way. So the biggest cure for me, and the biggest cure that I keep adding to my life, is ask for help. Ask for help. There's nothing wrong with asking for help, and you'd be very surprised who's ready to help you in a major way. In a major way. Not only ask for help, but also take good care of those that help you, because that's happened in the past where like people have helped me, and like have I stayed with those relationships close, and have honored them, and maybe that was just the length of that relationship. It was just that project. But even so, I feel like relationships, take care of those relationships. But the biggest cure is really just listening, hearing, asking for help.
And I also feel like because we both have all these gifts, so it's like knowing when to use these hats.
Right.
That it's okay that I'm born with these hats, and each hat needs its time to grow.
Right.
And the moment you fulfill them to a certain extent, you got to know when to put them on.
Yeah.
And then, or you're gonna drown yourself with all of them on. You know what I'm saying? Without realizing you are drowning.
Yeah.
So, I also want to know. I think it's also key because you're basically married with 2 kids. And you're juggling so much. I want to know, how do you stay focused and motivated, right? Because there's a time where you didn't have kids, you just had a girlfriend, so you're out there, hustling. Then you get married, that's another hustle. Then you add another baby, and that's a hustle now. And then another baby, now that's a different hustle.
Yeah.
So how do you stay focused and motivated, juggling all these things,
It's interesting. One time Guru Enlightenment told me, don't get caught up in saying that you're doing whatever you're doing for your kids. Like, don't forget about your journey. Don't forget that you have a responsibility in your own journey. So don't just be like, I'm gonna do all these things for my kids. They're your kids. You're gonna take care of your kids, but you gotta focus on the journey always. But I will say this, my kids, in the beginning, it was rough to adapt to this idea of having kids. And because what happened was I was making a big move. My wife and I had decided we were going to go to Los Angeles, and I was going to take my career to the next phase that I thought at that time was the right direction in the world. And I was going to go to LA where the big decisions are made. It was time. And you stay here, I'll go there, I'll set up shop, I'll bring you. I'm not even there 2 weeks, and she says I'm pregnant. So it's like, damn. I was like, we can't have a kid out here.
Yeah.
But when I first heard the news and she told me, I was kind of like, did she just say that? Is she really pregnant?
This
Like,
bitch trapped me? I'm in the room with Spielberg.
I thought to myself, I knew those condoms had holes in them. But my first reaction when she said it, there was like a little space of silence.
Right, of course.
She says, I'm pregnant. And then it was like in a script, it says pause, you know?
Because you have this happy, it's like all these emotions just came flooding in. It's like you're happy, you think about your career, you're thinking about you when you're watching TV with your parents, you're thinking about all these things. Like,
well, I'll tell you what, none of that stuff entered my head. The only thing that entered my head at that moment was like, I'm pregnant. And like, it was almost like it was on loop. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. It was like, and then I responded by saying, get the fuck out of here. That was the first thing I said. Get the fuck out of here. And she started to cry. She's like, oh no, I ruined this. This is all my fault. And she's emotional and she's crying. And I'm just like, wait, what are you talking about?
It wasn't like a get the fuck out of here.
No,
right.
It
was like, I'm shocked too.
I was shocked. It wasn't even like, no. And I said, no, hey, wait. And I said, hey, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Wait a minute.
Guys, for all the fellas that's listening, that is not, out of all the replies that you ever would say to your wife, if she says that is not one of them. We feel you. We understand as a man. We understand where you're coming from. But the woman was not going to get that from the jump. So,
but I told her, I said, listen, I said, wait a minute. I said, you didn't make this baby by yourself. You know, immediately I had to remind her, no, don't go there. Don't worry about this. We're going to figure this out. We're going to work this out. Don't worry. I said, you know, at that moment, we clearly decided that, look, we're not going to be in LA because our entire tribe is in New York City.
yeah.
And so for a long time, and I'll get to this thing I want to share. For a long time, it was difficult to adapt. Sometimes I felt like I had to wait a long time before I could get to something. Very hard to like write a script when, you know, you're taking care of a baby. And so finally when you get to your computer to type the script, you're dead tired.
Right.
And you say, okay, tomorrow I'll start something. So I had to find a way to make it work, and it took me a while. And some people were like, you know, you're not creating anything, you're not doing stuff. I said, it's tricky. It's really tricky, and you're tired most of the time. But I tell you what, fast forwarding today, I have a daughter who's 5. I have a son that's 9 months. And my daughter, and I get emotional about it because she loves everything that I do. You know, she loves everything that I do. She sits there, she reads the scripts with me, she's watching me, and she wants to help me, and she wants to write scripts. And so just the other day, she wrote her first script. Like, she dictated the entire script to me, and I typed it for her as she was saying it. It's called Leslie the Magician, based on Leslie's imagination. It's a 3-page script, but I knew that it was going to go on and on and on, so I'd say, all right, let's start wrapping it up. I said,
You gave it a Hollywood.
all right,
We got the development is weak.
we're going to need a commercial break. But honestly, when that happens, when your child looks at you like everything that you create is the greatest thing in the world, you realize how important you are. You know, you realize like you are important. The stuff that you have to offer is golden, and give yourself a chance. Like, never forget that. She reminds me of that every single day. So the kids get in the way, they absolutely do not. Let them show you who you are on a much deeper level. And it will change your life. I mean, if you think that the amazing shows that you've done now have changed people's lives and have been successful, and you have kids one day,
You're gonna see.
You're gonna be up there with your kid at the show. They're gonna be wearing the same suit that you're wearing because I know how you are.
Yeah.
Matching suits. Even if it's a girl, she'll have a suit. You know.
I already know what to say at the moment that like my wife tells me that she's pregnant. I'm like,
What are you gonna
fuck out of here. Fuck out of here.
But give it a pause.
You gotta wait. I was like, baby, come on, Victor, tell me. All right, so now we're gonna move along. We're gonna get into these segments and slowly wrap up. So these different segments, basically, there's like 3 of them, and it's just to get to know you a little bit more and to share. So this one, the first segment is called Peekaboo, right? So I want to know, what is something you hide from the world?
I hide a lot of my honesty. I hide how I really feel about stuff in that moment. I'll hang on to it, and then I'll release it later in a different way.
Now, what is something you show the world?
I show them that I share my talent with them. I share my love for films and comedy with them. I love to entertain them. I'm always there to help them. I'll share my heart with them constantly, more than I should sometimes. I give the shirt off my back, and I don't have that many shirts.
Thank you for sharing that, man. That's awesome. This next segment is called If You Would Die Tomorrow. With no shirts. Not if you would die tomorrow. So
in front of my TV, watching comedy with my child.
If you knew you was dying tomorrow at 3 p.m., what is something you would try to accomplish in life? You know, don't make it about like, oh, I won't have enough time. But you're granted that. Whatever it is, if you know tomorrow at 3 p.m. you're going to die, what is something you want to like to accomplish?
I'll make a feature film with my daughter.
Whoa, the magician.
The magician.
But with
I'll produce it.
Great notes and...
I'll hire the best actors. She'll be the star.
That's dope.
That's the first thing I would do before I die, because she needs to know that it can happen. She needs to see her script come to life. And, my wife and my son will be there to see it happen. They'll be the crew. And then after we make the movie, we'll quickly cut it, edit it, we'll watch it, we'll have dinner. Until 3 p.m. shows up, we'll just spend that time together.
The credits roll and you're dead.
And I'm dead. Matter of fact, you know how after the credits, like the secret ending, the Easter egg? I'll be just dead.
That's actually very beautiful, man. That's awesome. This next segment is called Words from My Spiritual Teacher, Guru Enlightenment. Everyone knows that we have a spiritual teacher.
Yes.
She teaches spirituality, to believe in yourself, knowing that you have a purpose in life. And this is a segment to basically get herself, for you to get to know her, her writings, get familiar with it, and just to put that spark in you to go and check out her website. She has helped me. Can
I say something? I feel like spirituality is like so vague in general for people listening, and not to cut you off at all, but honestly, like, she shows you where you carry the keys, and she shows you which keys will open up doors, and like, it is truly up to us to open those doors. Like, it is. What she shows us and what she teaches is so much more interesting than the word spirituality in itself. When you hear spirituality, you have your own version of what that means, and you immediately judge based on what you think it is. But what she teaches is beyond that word. It's beyond anything that you can imagine, and it's only yours. Wynn has his own experience. I've had my own experience, and it will blow your whole mind on such a deep level. And I just had to say that.
No, it's true. It's true. And then, of course, you guys, I'm going to leave it always in the comments, her Instagram, her website. You could check all the stuff. And I want to share one of her writings. And this one is called You Are the Sign and the Proof. And it says, we all need a sign from somewhere to believe in. Something what we don't realize is that the sign we need the most is the one that comes from within ourselves. We're too busy looking out there in the world for signs. We forget we have been carrying that sign since the moment we entered this earth. We look for proof, but we are the proof. How does that make you feel when you hear that?
It's great. It's a confirmation that messages are everywhere. When you see them in signs, actual physical signs, or if you see them on TV, or you hear them come from even you might say something, that's a message from the spirits coming through you. And if you're open, all of that stuff confirms your path, your journey. It confirms the information you have inside. You know, when you ever have that feeling of like, yeah, it's because it confirms. You read a book, you think the book has given you something, but she shows us that no, it just confirms that. And it's a good reminder. That is the sign. That's the sign. Like, go, stop, yield.
Right.
That's it right there.
When I think of this, you know, it's so funny with these podcasts. I always feel whenever I search for her writings and stuff like that, and to see, it always relates back to sums up the podcast. And to me, you know, hearing your story today, you know, you came into this world, so you was getting these signs from the world, the approval from the world, but then you realize as you continue to work on yourself that no, the signs already are in me. Like, I don't need to listen to the signs of the world that they're telling me what to become. I came with my sign already, you know, so I don't need to continue to look for the world because I know what I'm going to get. The world's always going to come to me. But I already have the biggest world, and that is within me. So that's my sign. That's my proof. When I look at my kids and they want to work on the script, it's the biggest sign. They're showing me your son, your marriage, your whole life, everything that you have been doing, like you said, is a reminder, and that is the biggest sign.
Yeah.
Once again, thank you everybody for checking out another episode of the Win Podcast. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, Instagram, at the Win Podcast. And any information you want to check out, just look at the description box and all the information is there. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed another episode. Peace.